guess it's time.
7:31.
So we need a roll call
Mrs. Welker,
here.
Mrs. Petrie,
Yes.
Mrs. Saharsky,
Yes.
Mrs. Oshie,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis. Mr. Cruz.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Okay. We have perfect attendance even after all that fun. When are we gonna do it? Text. That was interesting. Okay, we have one item on the agenda tonight, so we need to approve the agenda
As
first.
presented.
As presented, yes. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and then Ms. Petrie, second. Any discussion, questions, concerns? Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand. Motion carries. Okay, the item tonight is to discuss possible solutions for the primary and their needs, to see what we can do to help them. I know there were several options and that need to be explained, and then if we have questions or other thoughts, we can add to it.
All right, first, we appreciate you coming out and getting together. I know it's 7:30, it's a little late, but, and I apologize to those that we had to get emails till 10:30 one night if you were in bed like I was. So at least we got it laid out, and we appreciate you being here. The email we sent, of course, we knew would have a lot of questions, so we're very thankful the board wanted to meet and get together to kind of go through those. What we did today as administrative team, central office, we went to the primary, sat down this afternoon a little later, and visited with Dr. Costin to get some input on viable options with this position. We looked at really some key points, which was any possible internal movement, and if we had any administrative movement we could do to help cover positions. We looked at opening the position, which also had some subcomponents. How do we do that internally or externally? We also looked at any retirees or the retiree option. We also discussed how do we post the position. We looked at internal. We have one kind of viable option, but we all agreed it's probably not our best option to maybe look to move around utilizing one of the administrators or the administrator at the Learning Center to cover the position to the end of the year. Then we realized, well, we're going to have to move someone to help cover those duties, and we're going to have that whole carousel going around, so we weren't for sure how that option would look. We talked about opening the position, and we discussed internal opening and looked to see how we can fill the position with any possible internal candidates. Then we talked about external opening and posting of the position. We discussed possible retirees that we might come in and help with the principal position. Again, we struggle with, well, who could that be due to some of the needs down at the primary building with our students, some of our special needs students, how would we cover that, and the changes in behaviors from retirees then and now. We also focused on what this position would look like, and that kind of takes you to the handout we have for you tonight, what was sent home in the email. The first thing we discussed was, well, hopefully you have them in the same order I do. Across the top it says assistant principal option. And we looked at in that the assistant principal for the remainder of the 16-17 school year and for the 17-18 school year starting January the 3rd. That option shows the minimum maximum salary, but understand that is for a school year, not half a year. We talked about some of the pros and the cons of that. Our next discussion was the assistant principal for an interim type position and then repost the position for the 17-18 school year. Again, you kind of look at what that salary cost is. It's a considerable amount to the same as the previous suggestion. You kind of have the pros and cons with that position. We next focused on the assistant principal and then adding, a title like dean of students, an individual that could assist with some of the high needs in that building, And lastly, we discussed kind of a permanent assistant administrative intern, and then an administrative intern for the 17-18 school year. Man, we spent a lot of time trying to go over what we believe is kind of the best option. From the administrative standpoint, speaking with Dr. Costin, we like, one, we were down there meeting with the staff to let them know kind of what was going on in their building. One big thing we kept hearing was, hey, we need more help. It'd be nice if we had another assistant or someone that could help assist based upon the needs of our students and the population we have. So we kind of focused our recommendation based on that mentality. What we would like to do is look to bring in an administrative intern for the duration of this school year. That is for January to the end of the school year. And that administrative intern role we would like to keep, meaning not just for 16-17, but also the 17-18 school year. This administrative intern would basically have what we consider a mobile job based upon the needs. So if we have a lot of our high needs kids move out of our primary building and move up, this intern position would basically move with those needs. And then we would like to post the assistant principal position coming up as we get ready for the spring hiring season. Now with that, this administrative intern would be able to apply for that assistant principal position. Now if they did not get that position, our belief is they should stay in that administrative intern role. We're not going to move them back to the classroom and post both positions. So whoever secures that position, if they're not successful, and because our focus is we would like to open that assistant principal role up throughout, not just internally, but externally. And this time of year is kind of a tough year with people and contracts. You might not get, I hate to say not a top candidate, because I think we have a lot of people in our district that could serve in that role, but the pool of applicants will be larger to choose from in the spring. So with that, we talked about how would that position look. Well, for administrative interns, we look at that 188 to 190 day contract period. We would look at the salary difference of where they are on the salary schedule, because we might have a veteran teacher that wants to be the intern, and they might be higher on the salary schedule. So we can't say we would like to have 50 to 55,000, which is traditionally what this position, an intern, has paid in the past. If you have a teacher making $54,000, you're not going to pay them $1,000 extra. We're going to look at where they are, maybe a $5,000 stipend type thing to offset the extra duties. We discussed those duties. Dr. Costin visited with us at length about that. We're not going to expect this individual to have a lot of nights away or nights out, but we are going to require them to be at a couple of things. We talked about a Dr. Seuss night being one, or
all staff events.
Where the staff have to be, the intern would be. So with that, we wanted to use our resources to meet the needs that the teachers say that we have, and offset some of our needs as far as student-related issues with another person. We would carry this again throughout next school year as well, because we believe the need would still exist. So ultimately, you're looking at an additional cost between $50,000 and $55,000, not including benefits. So you would take what you currently paid this year roundabout for your assistant principal position, which is between 74 and 94, would be your same amount. Basically, you're adding an intern. That would be the position that you're adding. Again, I want to clearly state that our focus is that this job is mobile. It's not someone that will always be in the primary. That need might be there always at the primary. We don't know what's going to move in, move out with our special needs population, but we want to be clear that this position could move up to the intermediate, the elementary, whatever the need might be. All right, so with that, if we have questions as far as pros and cons, we can address those. We liked, of course, all these we believe are viable options, but as you see, all of them have pros and all of them have cons. There's in any one of these options, we don't see one that is perfect. So with that, we'll open the floor for some discussion.
I like it. It kind of fits into what I had talked about with
Right.
Having someone that's more focused and trained on the sped side, even like an autism coach type thing.
And I appreciate you bringing that, we had a great discussion on that today, this afternoon. We looked at, hey, what would that look like if we try to just bring those kids together and have a specific behavioral type setting? We talked about, well, an issue we're going to have is when you're bringing a student from the primary up here, we don't have, of course, playground. The restrooms aren't geared towards students of littler stature. How are we going to, use the facility? How are we going to hire the professionals to house in that facility to educate the kids? We transport. There was so much more, so we thought this option would still help that population and be able to float with them as needed. So it's kind of a mix of what you brought up as well.
This intern, we will not be taking an existing teacher out of their classroom.
For the intern position.
I
Is that
know,
what you're
I'm
asking?
saying I would be reluctant to take a teacher who now has a classroom full of children out of that position to give them an intern position. I just don't think that would serve the needs of those children best.
Okay?
So if we did this, could we go outside for this intern?
Yes. Your way your board policy is written is you will post in-house, and if you don't believe you have any for 5 days, and if you have no viable candidates, then you will go out-house. But to me, in order to be an equal opportunity employer, you post and look at your candidates, and we can post simultaneously. I think, according to the policy, the way it's interpreted is if you believe there's a need, you can post it simultaneously, which we'll need to because it's going to be a time crunch for us. But, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say we're not going to hire anybody in-house, because to me, you're not being an equal opportunity employer. But I also understand that that's something we will weigh when you interview. How's this going to impact students?
I mean, that in-house person could apply then for the beginning of the 17-18 year.
For the assistant principal position.
But not for this one, 'cause
Unless
not the way
the-
they have this.
Unless the
Right.
Unless the
intern-
intern gets the assistant principal, then they can apply for the intern
Well,
position.
what I'm saying is, okay, I understand that we need to open it up to the staff, but I would be reluctant to hire someone and take them out of their classroom. But that person could apply for the position for the following school year.
Right, one of the two that are open. You are
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
And I agree that, to me, that's the biggest
That's the biggest
problem
con
with
of
this,
yes.
is that you're gonna end up taking a teacher out of the classroom. That's not fair to the kids or to the
The
parents
parents, that's not good.
halfway through, which is why knowing that this, whatever is hired here would be a continuing,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
Sure.
Whereas if it's a temporary person for the semester, then if I'm in that classroom, I may not be willing to go through this
Right.
now because it's a temporary
I
spot.
don't know if I'm gonna have, and exactly right. I mean, that is also another option. This intern position will be posted, and as the board, I'm hearing,
Well-
a common theme is, hey, maybe we look out-house to fill this for.
I would be
in the semester.
concerned with someone wanting to take a 6-month. What caliber of person are we gonna get that will take a
Well,
6-month job?
To answer that question, you have some graduates that semester, but typically those are just bachelor teachers, not necessarily administrators. And you're gonna have some administrators, but my question is, why
Why aren't they?
are you not an administrator currently? So there are some gaps there.
Have any of us had that experience as a parent, that, you had this teacher lined up twice? And so as a parent in that situation, Eddie's shaking his head as well, what occurred from the parent's perspective, from the child's perspective, et cetera? Was it a good situation?
We were in the same situation. I don't know that it was ideal, but she made it through twice. I mean, and she's doing wonderfully. I think when we were talking about this, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one thing we were talking about is if this were to happen and if somebody internal, bringing a retired teacher, yes,
Correct.
back to fill that classroom position. Somebody with experience and somebody you know, you're not taking a brand-new teacher in the middle of the school year and putting them with kids who have already established a routine and that. So I think that's an important,
That way you don't have a new
Piece of the
person
puzzle,
coming in that
too.
hasn't had experience teaching.
What retired
What
people have
Eddie-
you investigated as a possibility?
We have not spoke, we just kicked around a few ideas, so, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable sharing those names with you because we have not spoken to those people. You know, I haven't asked those people specifically, would you? But we did have some conversations, because you have those that have already worked. We gotta look at the 550 for retirement. I don't believe that this is a high-need position similar to, you know, SHOP, where you have a 2-year waiver and you can get someone retired to fill the position. That won't work for elementary. There's a lot of certified people out there. But we have some teachers, you know, that are retired, that are currently in the district, that have various positions that we talked about. So we've kicked a few names around.
To be in a classroom.
Correct, if that were to happen.
Okay, can we go back and let
Yes.
Eddie answer that last question?
When it happened, like Ms. Hildebrand said, it wasn't ideal, but my son, as well as many other kids, are resilient.
Right.
And today, he's fine, he's not scarred, or he didn't suffer, his education didn't suffer, because the teachers that he had came together and they gave him the best education.
When was it done? Was it
He was in
beginning of
first
the year,
grade.
first grade
mid-year?
and third grade, we both had the same thing in first and
Before
third.
school or during the school year?
During in first grade and right before in third.
This is the beginning, yeah, basically,
It was
Right after the
with our
beginning.
gate position, if you remember.
Okay,
I just didn't
so
know
that was
what
at the,
time
toward
it
the
Right.
beginning,
It was at the beginning, not midway through.
yes.
not at semester.
I think the positive, if you have one right now, is that you're coming back after break, not in the middle of a quarter or something of that nature, where they've ended, we got closure on one end, and then you're starting new, come back at the beginning of the year.
It wouldn't be much different than a maternity leave, just a long one.
Exactly.
Let's not go there.
Well, my other, I guess, concern would be that this intern would be, I'm guessing, have no experience in administration to speak of.
Well, it depends. We had, you know, we go back to those internal candidates. We've had some that have been summer school directors, that have been administrators during the summer, or done internship work with the school. So I wouldn't say zero, but that's kind of why we're looking at that intern position rather than the assistant principal position at this time.
The teacher that was at the elementary school before Melissa, or she's a teacher now in the district, right? Miss, can't remember her
You
name.
talking about, you said teacher that's now teaching me.
She was the elementary principal before Melissa,
Yes, Mrs. Kosharek.
right? Would she maybe be?
I don't know. We haven't had that. We haven't addressed that. Because again, you're going to be taking a teacher away from
Have a
kids.
classroom, except for that secondary, which they're set up on a semester basis, a lot.
If I understand this right, this intern's gonna be following those students up. They're gonna be mobile, meaning if the need moves to the intermediate or to the elementary, this intern can follow them.
Yes, based upon the need, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen next school year.
Correct. Would it make more sense to hire someone that falls underneath our SPED, like as a behavior management or behavioral type person who would follow these kids and be mobile versus an intern?
Now, when I
that's
spoke
gonna
with
be more
that
money.
district out of Kansas City,
Mhm.
they actually recruit from the local colleges
Right.
in those particular areas of study
That's a good.
for those type
Mhm.
of positions.
Which is what we do. We go to job fairs at MOVAB. We've been to job fairs trying to recruit some of that. That's a hard to fill position with special education. So you're wanting to find a special ed person that also is an administrator, has administrative certification. And the reason we're looking at that
Call like
is,
deans or say.
Do they,
No.
right, I mean, we've, I know every February, John goes out, and in fact, we went, was it Southeast? We went to Southeast.
So Southeast Missouri Baptist,
Uh-huh.
that's coming up in February.
do they have to have an administrative certification though? If they come in as a behavioral specialist, can they then run those recovery calls and help move that program? Because I know
They
we're
wouldn't be
looking.
able to handle you have to have an administrative certification to deal with any type of, anything beyond that. They can't discipline kids, they cannot work with staff that might be struggling or need assistance. They can't supervise, they can't evaluate, they can't, of course, our position was the administrative intern wouldn't be providing the evaluations. That's what we're trying to do, is free up Dr. Costin to continue to do those.
But if this
Additionally,
person
would
was,
that meet our MSIP requirements? If
That
we
is
didn't
correct.
have an
We have to
I know
have
his
a
question was
minimum of
the
2, a
MSIP.
desirable of 2.5.
and then if they were handling the behavioral issues,
Mhm.
I guess, would that alleviate Dr. Costin some of her time to do?
Yes,
But
but they
should
have to
that
have an
re-
administrator certification. They can have a special, I mean, I have a special ed background and I have K-12 administrative
Well,
certification.
maybe you need to move in.
I do, I mean, because ultimately, we have to do what's best for these kiddos, and
I'm thinking.
that's gonna
part of
help
our-
one select group of population. We want to be able to help all the kids
Right.
down there. We just don't want this person to be strictly tied to behavioral interventions. We want this person to be able to assist all areas.
Well, I'm just thinking, right now, the biggest challenge is the behavior.
100% agree, and
That's all
that
I'm
is,
brainstorming
that is a
about.
focus, but that's not 100% of the focus. Is that,
It makes sense,
Okay.
it does, but I know that's a big challenge right now.
yes, it
to
is.
address.
Well, I'm thinking like 3 things here.
That's it.
The water went down the wrong way, but, so, can you get us back to kind of where Ed was? I mean, or can he let us kind of know what he saw, did? I mean, because basically, we were replacing an assistant principal temporarily, and he had a lot of hats to cover. So, I mean, can you guys give us how this all came about a month and a half later, and any suggestions, what'd you see, how's it think? I mean, because I know the enrollment's down, but I know sped's up.
Right.
So I know we're trying to kill a bunch of birds here with,
Right.
but,
How it came about as far as why I.
well, when you were nominated or brought to our attention, it was kind of like, this could be a potential, you could stay there for a while.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden, a month and a half later, I know you have 2 hats, and we knew that, and that was our concern, but now you decide.
Yeah, that's easy for me to answer, actually.
Yeah.
I shared this with Central Office Administration and Dr. Costin last Friday, and it's really simple. I think sometimes when in our positions and what we do here, we think the grass may be greener on the other side and that we want to do something different. And I think that happens at times. And whenever that does happen, we go out and we try new things. I really enjoyed my time with primary. I loved working next to Dr. Costin and doing everything I did.
Wasn't greener?
It wasn't my passion.
Okay.
My passion is what I do at the high school.
It was
My
noble. I
passion-
think it was great what you did by pulling out and helping.
My passion is working with high school kids and student athletes, and it drives me, and I really enjoy doing that. Not that I have anything against the primary building or didn't enjoy it there. It's not my passion. It was a job and I liked it.
Did you go through these 4? Have you seen these 4 options?
Yeah, I've seen.
What's your recommendation? It's a legit
He's
question.
going back to the high school, he didn't care.
No, that's not true, Director Peters.
No,
That's
I
not true at all. I care very much because I think that until anyone has lived it and done it,
Yeah.
I truly don't understand.
That's why I'm asking you.
That's
Yeah.
What it's like, and I do want to say this, at the time the decision was made for me to go to the primary, that was the best decision at that
Right.
time. It absolutely was. And I have no qualms, hard feelings, or anything about the decision. I really thought I could do it as well. But as we got going, it became harder and harder every day. And that's what I shared with Central Office on Friday when I met with them. And it's just a deal where something was gonna give one way or the other. I couldn't continue to both
Right.
because just as busy as I am at the high school, it's just like that at the primary building. It's just a different set of circumstances that you're working with down there. I look at all your options here, and the option that intrigues me the most, or that I think would work, is to finish out the year with an intern, and then and hire whoever your assistant's gonna be for the following year. Get them both done now. That's my suggestion. I don't make those decisions though, and it may not be in line with what central office or you guys even wanna do. To me, that gives the most clarity, that we know where we are, we know where we're going, because we gotta find a good solution for all involved.
Right.
That's the key to this. And who knows, at this time, we may make that decision and have to reevaluate that decision as well. But you continue to make the best decision you can with the circumstances you're given, and that's all you're doing.
You're thinking like me. That's why I asked you, because you were there, and that's exactly what.
And my recommendation, which, again, I say that because I've lived it now.
Right.
I've been there for 6 or 7 weeks, whatever it is, and that's what I see. That there is a definite need for it, and I can totally justify it to anybody that wants to talk about it.
Now, my third question was, do you think, and I mean, I see the part with Ms. Shaharsky is pulling a teacher out. I mean, do you think it's a thing that we need a fresh face over there, that we should go outside, or do you think, I mean, I know we can't, we have to open it up, I understand that, but I mean, there's been a lot of taboo stuff over there.
I think,
mean, we need
I
to,
think it doesn't matter what you do, so long as you make the best decision for the kids involved. And if that means the best candidate is in-house, then the best candidate's in-house.
right, I agree, but I didn't know.
Thank
Are
you.
you asking how the other staff would react to an in-house?
Yeah, I
versus
mean,
an
there's a
out-house
lot of,
candidate?
there's a lot of stuff going on there for years, and I'm just wondering, you know, if it, I mean, we can't just do it, we can't, you know, do what we want, huh? I mean, you and I were kind of on board with, hey, let Laban go over there and
Yeah,
kind of clean house.
I think what I thought was we just needed something very temporary, but I wanted somebody over there with some experience.
Right.
And that's why I felt,
'Cause you don't
and
have
I
to-
realize that Mrs. Laban may not be the ideal choice, but she is an experienced administrator, she has an elementary background, she would be totally temporary. And then it gives us time to really get the kind of candidate that we want, that, you know.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but then that leaves us, we
It's a
got
domino
a
effect.
group of high maintenance,
A small group though.
But it's a very small group.
27?
And Melissa, they're not, are they behavioral?
Oh, it, yeah, it just depends on the day.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually, it depends on the moment.
It's a lot of work.
It's, some
a
days
variety.
you're, okay, and then other days, you may only have 25 or 30 kids. It's like 300. It really just depends on the day, it depends on the hour, it depends on the mix of kids.
In the struggle, that's, was at the top of my list as number one. Because I agree, that is the simplest, easiest fix for the primary. But what worries me is you're dealing with a population that you're trying to get graduated, that you're working on so many different things per kid in order to get them eligible to graduate. And I don't want to lose that either. Because they're going to have to be, I don't like using the word managed, led, whether you have Missouri options, whether you have.
How many teachers are up there though?
We have.
Four. Up here?
Up
we
there,
have
4 plus.
4 plus,
We have
the
some special ed.
needs kids that come over.
Or full-time?
Well, do we have to box ourselves in and say that that intern position is set in stone? You know, that person can be temporary as well and move in either direction.
We talked about that. You mean eliminate the intern and just go back to the assistant principal at the end of the year type conversation?
Possibly, you know,
Reopen
or,
that.
and add that at the end of the year if we
Right,
really
maybe.
need that.
The thought that we had, and I don't want to misspeak, please anyone over there jump in, the 4 of you that we had this talk, the concern was who's going to apply for a job that might not be a job in 3 months?
Sure.
Because you're going to turn right around in February, March and post the job, and and then they don't get it. You hire a candidate in March, and it's not the candidate that's the intern, and what do you really have for the
Well,
next
and
2
then
months?
you're kind of stuck there from March on, or if we hire in February, really this person's coming in January, and you're gonna give them until the middle of February to, I don't know.
Well, but it could be a foot in the door as well. I mean, you can look at it that way.
We
You know,
did, exactly.
if they're hired, and anybody that we're gonna put in that position, most likely they're not gonna have a lot of experience.
Right, and that's what
And so
concerns me.
that's gonna give them an edge, at least, and it's kind of a testing period to see if they really work, you know, if they fit.
Dr. Christine.
Sorry to interrupt. I will
That's
say
okay.
that I know that there's an issue of looking internal, external, depending on, you know, what role you go with. But if it is an intern role, there's people within my school and with the elementary and the intermediate that do know a background, would come in with just at least a little bit of our program.
Sure.
And have that respect from their peers of being somebody who's reputable. And I think that goes a long way. And would it possibly disrupt a classroom? Probably. But it's just what you want as a board. Would you rather have a smoother sailing ship as a whole or not?
Well, I just don't want us to say this is how it has to be when we might want to make changes with it later
And we
on.
100% agree. That's why we're sitting around this table as administrators, because we didn't know how to post the position. We didn't know what direction to go.
And I don't have qualms with pulling a teacher from a classroom. Because like Calista said, they're gonna have knowledge of the inner workings and how things go, and they may have that extra step. And that's affecting the smallest amount of kids, where, you know, this intern person is gonna be helping that whole building.
Right.
And that's a bigger population that it's going to affect. So, you know, you pick the lesser of the two, I suppose, with that.
Right, and that's what you see, everything in front of you, there are cons. As we thought this through and talked it through, we want to know how to post the position. Because that's what we have to do. We have to post the position and say, this is what it is. That doesn't mean that it has to be permanent. That doesn't mean that you have to keep the intern.
No.
It doesn't mean any of that. It just means when we open this up, we need to be able to say, here's a job. You can kind of expect this salary range, and here are the duties.
So if we were to hire an intern from within, and let's say that it just didn't work out, then they could go back to their classroom
Yes.
the following year, or the following school.
Yes, you hire the
Next
intern.
fall.
If they don't work out, then you can move them back into their classroom next fall.
Because we'd have like a long-term sub type deal.
Yes. That's why you're not going out and hiring a brand new teacher.
Have we looked at, and I don't know, you'll have to share with me, using the assistant principals out of a couple other buildings and splitting their time? Well, we still meet, I guess, is it the MSET, or the standard that we need to have, I forget what you call it. Does that make sense?
It
You know what I'm
does,
asking?
it does, but here's my educated professional opinion. You have one building in chaos, you don't want to put 3 others in chaos
At
with it.
risk.
And you're right, that building would be at risk because now that administrator is going to be by themselves a certain portion of the day, albeit an hour or two, but we still have, and Mr. Whitehead's here, behavioral issues at all the buildings. So you wind up taking those assistants away when those building principals need them to help assist with behaviors. And what I don't want to happen is your evaluations, because all assistants assist in evaluation of staff. So when you pull them away, now they're going to be dealing with behaviors and not have the time to get our staff evaluated. I see that as just initial. Any other thoughts about?
It's not
About that?
consistent though for those kids to have 3 different people popping in here and there, and that's gonna be difficult, I think. And you leave that other administrator, you know, on their own, and who knows when something's gonna pop up. You can't predict when. So I think that's just risky.
Well, and on the evaluations, and I know that, you know, you're supposed to do X number. In the primary building, can you just kind of back that off and take something off the plate to help ease this and maybe go back to just simply
Sure.
doing probationary teachers?
Callista Coastal
This
would
year.
love that.
Well, but I mean, you know.
But the
that's-
other 200 staff members, you're going to have to dial it back for every building. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you're going to have.
So what?
you-
Well, nobody's gonna complain
Well,
about
really?
that.
No one will
But,
complain about
I
that.
mean, you know, this is kind of a unique situation. Nobody else's building is without administrators
100%
mid-year.
agree.
And so we're
100%
kind of under an emergency
And we can back it down, I'm just
situation.
saying, we shouldn't just back it down for the primary. We'll need to back it down for everyone.
Well, and none of the administrators are gonna cry about
No.
that.
No, they won't.
In fact,
They'll
they'll
have
do
more
a happy
time.
dance, I'm sure.
Dr. Isaacson, any thoughts on that?
On the knee?
On dialing back the need?
No, I don't. It's, we were just talking about that. Each building, when we talk about, the knee is really changed for our administrators. You know, I think we 5 or 6 times going in before, that's a lot of evaluations. It's tough to do that. They're trying to go through there, and we actually dialed it back, I think, last year, because, you know, our beginning of the year last year, and different things come up in each building. Curveballs get thrown, but we need to get to that 4 or 5 observations.
How many have they had to do for the first semester already? By the end of Christmas, they had to have, how many?
We don't put a
You just do it for
stipulation.
the
We
year.
ask them is have everybody on the same amount. Don't have John Isaacson at 4 and Miss Hildebrand at 0. You know, where there's that, if you're busy, keep them all in line, because that's where, you know.
And last year, we dialed it back. We came and said, we can't
Right.
get, and so
I
we
know
dialed
you
it back
did
to
that.
4. I mean,
Sure.
we did have a goal of 6 or 8,
6 or
whatever it
8.
was. We dialed it back to 4, and it, you know.
And it's up to 6 or 8 again this year.
When, you know, I asked that question of you yesterday, there was, I read frustration because you had accomplished one for everybody with the exception of one teacher in your building and had just begun the second round.
Correct.
And some of that is your self-expectation of yourself, I'm sure, but,
I like to meet expectations.
yes,
And I like to
Real
check things
follow-up.
off and,
Well, yeah.
you know,
but,
stay on schedule.
you know, truly tenured teachers, I mean, do they need as many as the
Every three-
probationary
they're
teachers?
like every 3 years, but I think we do one. You know, we try to keep up with them as well.
Right,
You know,
but
and
the expectation of everybody having
Well,
4 would.
it used to be
dial it back for
non-tenured
everybody.
had 2 or 3 a year, and the
That one before
tenured had,
that's needed.
well, until 5.
Yes.
And then you went every 3
3.
years for those tenured ones. But not every school district does need
Right.
Right.
either.
That's true.
So, I mean, those are just our goals, right? That
That's,
we've
the
set.
need is
you have to have 4.
a computer program. I mean,
I know.
it's, each district, the standards are the same as DESI model and all of them.
Okay.
It's- And really, like for a tenured teacher, their summative evaluation is the summative of the 3 years of observations. So if you have 2 or 3 in 2016, 17, you had 4 the year before, there's a 7 evaluation, it's the sum over those 3 years
Right.
that you have hopefully 10 to 15 times the administrator's been in a classroom. So you have an accurate picture rather than, hey, you caught me on 3 bad days.
Yeah, it's
and
an
that's your
average.
evaluation.
And the
Sure.
more you put in there,
Sure.
the law of averages works out. So if you have a teacher that had a bad day or 2, and you only have done 2 observations, they're gonna be low. So yeah, you're right, it's the law of averages, as I see it.
Eric, you're kind of quiet. What's your point? You gotta have something to say.
I'm just, no, I mean,
Is anybody in favor of the principal, assistant principal?
Just, you mean,
Just
hire
straight
an
up.
assistant principal right now?
Yeah, the first one you gave us.
We don't recommend that, no.
Anybody? All right, good. Next. Come on, Lisa.
Next is the assistant principal, intern, repost for the 17, interim, excuse me, 17-18 option.
Anybody like that?
What,
Well, the
I'm
option
not
that we
ready
have
for
recommended
those
is
yet.
not the option in front of you, is what I'm
No,
trying to
it's
tell
not,
you.
it's different.
It's a little different, modified option,
so
We don't have that.
you
one.
talked about having,
because it just come up at 4 o'clock this afternoon. so we
you
don't have
talked
that.
about having a retired administrator come in.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that fit in these options?
Well, we kind of crossed it off the list with Mrs. Laban, to be honest with you. And that was at Callista's
With Mrs.
recommendation. Yeah, we had, like, see, my number 1 up here was internal. Do we have any internal possible moves? And we put Laban, and then we looked at retirees and question mark who. And that was kind of, and I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
I think the expectations of the job have changed over the years, and I think the likelihood of someone wanting to come in that has enjoyed retirement to walk in with our current behavioral status will not be as willing to work the job that has to be done. Would you say that's fair?
I completely agree.
And you know, bottom line, no
You can't be on
staff
board
member should
anymore.
have to go through what is
Right.
happening with all the biting and the hitting. And I
Nobody should
mean,
have
it's the
to.
behavior
Doesn't
management
matter who it is.
that needs to be addressed
Mm-hmm.
from K through.
Well, I know in my experience last month on Wednesday mornings, that office is going 100 miles an hour.
Sure it is.
I've seen kids break loose and lock themselves in Doc Costein's office and
Yeah.
use the recovery room pretty regular, and they're, man, they're.
My 4th thing, are you
busy.
out, ready?
Huh?
Have you checked out?
What do you mean?
You're not in there no more, right?
No.
He is.
Oh, you are still.
I made it
January.
clear to central office that I thought it was only fair to that building, to Dr. Coasting, to everyone involved, that I stay there through the end of the semester.
Okay, that's what I
So I am
thought.
still doing what I'm doing.
All right,
Hence
through
the
end of semester.
urgency to fill that.
Sure, right.
By January 3rd.
And I totally appreciate him staying. I mean, he does an outstanding job with the hard circumstances.
Well, we haven't discussed this Dean of Students thing
Well,
either.
that
I don't
was-
know what that's all about.
That was just a title, as you see title in parentheses. That was the assistant principal and add basically a dean of students, a title, a person that would deal with the behaviors and assist, that would allow the principal and the assistant principal. So it's kind of like the intern.
Right, this is the one.
That's kind of what we were talking about with the intern. It's just a title
That's what
change.
this,
That is basically what we're kind
on
of
paper is
proposing.
what I'm recommending.
Yeah.
It's just another name for the.
It's just another name for the intern, dean of students.
I
But we're
read
looking
that.
for, we'll have to look for, you know, like a high school, you have dean of students, a person in charge of all the behaviors. But, you know, we want to try to keep it with a title that is in core data, the core data manual, which administrative intern is. But we thought that a different title would give a little bit more bite to the job. If that makes
Okay,
sense.
so basically then, the two options would be just an interim person to fill in as an assistant principal, or having an assistant principal and an intern,
Have the intern now till the end of the year.
but not an assistant
But
principal.
open up the assistant principal, correct, and interview them, allowing the intern to apply. If the intern doesn't get it, they stay the intern. Basically, you're adding a position, but you're committing now to add it in the fall of 17, 18.
So any
Okay.
position, but the person will be in that position until next year.
Correct. But the intern will be in the position.
But then there's the money factor.
Right, that's what I
Correct.
was gonna ask, especially if, you know, all, we talked about all this behaviors and addressing some of that behavior
Right.
management, K through 6. Is there enough to do that plus the intern?
So you're talking about 3 people now
I
instead
mean-
of 2 people, correct?
I think 3 overall.
I'm not sure if,
Dr.
Three-
Coasting
three
and
overall.
2 others, yes.
We have not put the financial numbers to that, but yes, that's going to be costly.
yeah,
My only concern on the intern is, okay, we get the intern, and then we say, well, you can apply to be the assistant principal, but if you don't get it, you're still gonna be the intern.
Mhm.
But what if the intern really doesn't meet our expectations as an intern?
Yeah,
That
that's what
is-
I was talking
Yeah,
about,
that concerns me.
Okay.
not
Then
putting
you-
myself in the box.
Then I 100% agree with you. The whole focus from us was, who's going to apply for 6 months, and then all of a sudden, I'm not good enough to be the intern anymore, and you put me back in the classroom. How would that help the building morale dynamic? So our thought was, well, if they're qualified enough to be the intern, we let them have that administrative experience to build them up. But I understand your position. If they're not very good,
Right.
then you're stuck with them for another year.
I mean, you can be qualified and not necessarily competent.
I
Right.
agree. Well, then you don't make we don't extend it. We
Or
say,
they
you
don't
have
like
to the
it.
end of the year, we're looking to add an administrative intern position and an assistant principal position, and you just roll with it like that. Go ahead, sir.
And that's one of the reasons why we talked about the internal person, is you kind of feel like you're rolling the dice, it's mid-year. We've worked, that's where the internal candidate, we feel like you're at a better chance of making that choice, because you've worked with them, you know what they're
Know what
about.
they're getting.
When we're hiring them, you know, depending on our candidate pool, but we still need to find the very best person for kids, you know? And our goal is to hire that right person from day one. That's to be fair to our staff, to our kids, and to the person that we're hiring. You know, they have to have feeling that support, because what it can't be also is that person going there, a popularity contest
Right.
with the people they're working with. It was also, they're trying to please the hiring committee that we're basically holding them hostage. That's the reality of it. It becomes a game of survivor for that person. We owe it to whoever we put in that position to hire the very best we can and support them and work with them like we would any other first-year administrator that we have in the district. It's just a unique circumstance
I
here.
just-
and that is another concern, is that, of course, it could be someone from another building, not
Correct.
necessarily from this building.
That's
Which would
correct.
probably be more ideal, because taking a teacher from the classroom and then putting them in an administrative position among their peers, sometimes crossing that line is very difficult to do.
Well, that's
Versus
where,
going to another building.
in this, the administrative intern, as we've talked about, is student-centered, where Dr. Costin is working with doing the evaluation piece.
Well,
Because it is
sure.
hard. Where it's
Because they're
student-centered, they're focused on helping kids, where it doesn't have that direct impact immediately, like you say, because it's building that trust with your coworkers. You go as part of the team at Christmas, and you come back
And
as a
now
boss,
you're a boss.
which is a very unique situation. This allows for some of that transition
And many
to adjust to
times
the role.
they're excellent in the classroom, but
I just,
But as an intern, they're not
I just
the
don't want
top
to be
dog.
locked into
They're
an
not the
intern
top
that we
boss.
not.
I mean,
Yeah.
Callista's
I
still
really
in
don't want to be
charge.
locked into an
An
intern.
intern
that
is
might
just like
not-
We're okay with
middle
that.
If that
step,
happened with any
I
position you
think.
hire?
That's how I look at
They're
it.
not very good.
And
Yes, ma'am.
they're not sacrificing what they've
I was an
done
intern in my
thus
own
far.
building, just throwing that out
Because
there.
you were.
And there were some challenges that came with it, but I think it's setting some clear boundaries. I had to have some not so fun conversations with people that we used to hang out a lot, but now that you cross
Now you
the side,
can't.
you have to recognize where the boundaries are.
Right.
And that person has to know that when they come into it and be willing to do that. And then once you set those boundaries, I think people are pretty good about respecting it. You know, it's
Does-
only a couple of side conversations where you have to say, hey, you can't do
And
that.
this is gonna be a sexist statement I'm getting ready to make, so I'm
Uh-oh.
warning everybody. But the names that you shared with me yesterday are all female. And because of all the behaviors in there, you know, not that the females don't do a good job, but, you know, with the building being so female dominated.
You need
Well,
that
I
role
don't know if
model.
the reason
you
Yeah,
keep
male
adding-
role model. Right.
Because that's what I thought.
A lot of these little guys
Picked
have
him-
no
Picked Eddie because he's a
male
man.
influence at home.
That was the only reason.
You were close to their height.
But they needed that male role model. They
Yes.
were losing one.
You need
Yes.
his dad.
Yeah.
So is the
Well,
staff,
And I know you
are they
can't
aware that
put that
Ed's
down as their
checking out?
expectation,
Well,
but
we told them
Right.
that immediately.
So they all know.
They all know. And Eddie was gracious enough to
I'd
tell
be
them.
okay with the
So how's all
intern, as long
that
as it's not a
going?
permanent intern,
You hearing all kinds of stuff?
that that person was a.
There,
It's got his picture up all over the place, but.
it's been humbling, because they're kind of disappointed.
I'm saying, are the staff asking questions, are they lobbying for a position, or what are you hearing?
I think they're all pretty much shell shocked at this moment.
yeah.
From the
think
last
that's-
one and this one, and
I think
what's
there's a
gonna
lot
happen
of
next?
hurt feelings and
Still in it.
misconceptions
Right.
about various things. Some are accurate, some are just way off base. And I think they're just holding their breath to see what happens next.
Right.
It's
In my situation,
bad.
I think they understand why.
Right. Well, I think anybody does.
Right. Well, they knew it was temporary.
It's hard to work with.
Well, I think money is an important factor too, because didn't the board, was it a year ago, or maybe a little longer, it was brought to the board about adding another position?
Yes.
An
It was
administrative-
3 years ago.
Okay.
And financially, it was adding another assistant principal. And I believe that was in October 13, maybe, it's been a while back.
I didn't know
It was on the wish list.
It was on the wish list. Was it? Okay, on the wish list. And financially, but I also know what I'm hearing from the building is, this is what we need. And I know with the reduction of a class, you know, and we're trying to get an intern and pay close, a little bit more money, but when you talk about how much more it's gonna cost, the cost is gonna come in if you go for 3 people.
Mhm.
The two people, you're kind of where you are based
Right.
upon staffing over last year because we've
Right.
reduced a position. And looking at numbers, they're low again. So we're not seeing right now, but we have to wait on enrollment. I don't want you to think, hey, Doc told me in December we're not going to need a position again. But what I'm saying is, and I don't want the people going out there saying we cut a teacher to hire an administrative intern. because that is not the case. But since we're in this position, we can offset it with those monies. You
Well,
know,
the intern position could be temporary,
Right.
yes,
and then
I'd be okay with that.
we add the assistant principal, and maybe we have to wait and see if we can add an
Continue with the
intern for
intern.
the next year.
mhm.
If we had the temporary intern and say, okay, and next year we're going to hire an assistant principal and you'll be able to apply,
Mhm.
but if they don't make it, they're gonna go back to the classroom. They're gonna have a job. It just may not,
Right.
you know.
What about?
Or if the board decides to continue with the intern position, that you already have that individual in.
Because
You have that
If
option.
they are,
Qualified and a quality candidate for the
Yes.
position, I 100% agree.
Because other buildings, they have needs too. I'm not saying that the primary's needs are bigger and greater than everybody else's, but maybe we need another sped thing,
Mhm.
position instead of an intern in the
I worry about the
primary.
behavior issues, and how are we gonna solve the behavior issues?
I don't know
How
that
are we
we
gonna move
can.
forward, basically?
We just have to,
We haven't,
I don't know
we
that
haven't
can
really
solve
looked at
them.
all of those options yet, and that's what concerns me.
Mhm.
I don't want us racing to January 3rd to fill this position when we're like, okay, all that other stuff's gonna have to be
I
back on the
agree.
back burner.
I agree. I think it's too important a decision that we need to rush to it. Yeah, I just,
Because if we address some of the behavior, it's like in a classroom, you take out one or two of your behavior kids and your whole
the whole
makeup.
climate changes.
And I would think the same would occur in the building.
And I
So
know
yeah.
these behavior things are special ed needs most of the time.
Of course, not
But,
identified.
and I like the fact that that intern could follow those students to, or go to other buildings where all of a sudden there's a greater number. I mean, I think that's getting us on the right track, but is that really what we need to do at this point? I don't wanna, again, I don't wanna put myself in a box and make it permanent when maybe that wasn't the best thing for us.
Well, let me ask you this, we can't borrow from another school, we can't grab this assistant principal, we talked about that. But, and I know we, last year had 3 instructional coaches, and you guys were kind of like, nah, we didn't need them. I mean, we have the one right now, I mean, is that like, can we put that on hold? I don't even know what's going on
Put
with that.
what on hold?
Well,
Mrs. Luby?
Yeah, and have her
You mean
help out.
Have her be, I thought of that.
Well, have her help in any manner that we, whether
Yeah.
intern or.
It
Melissa
was my
needs her
impression,
too.
it was my impression she's helping you
Melissa
write
needs her.
curriculum.
Oh,
Big
okay.
time.
I'm sorry.
She's helping you write curriculum, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
You
she
can't pull her
Right,
from that.
math or.
We've already, and like you said, we already took
Yeah,
two.
we have a heart attack.
Right,
a lot
well, I
of
mean,
your
then,
time.
the only reason I say when we took 2, it kind of like, is it even effective, and now it's in curriculum more than.
Well,
it is
that's my
teaching.
sister, I
Right.
don't know if she has a certification as a principal.
I was just thinking of an area to.
Oh, I
up
understand.
here to- Yeah, I didn't realize she was writing curriculum, so,
Well,
yeah.
that's Melissa's right hand for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, and she
How
needs
many
her.
right hands do we need over there?
Well,
Getting pretty heavy over there.
some of us need.
Do we have any SPED people with an admin certification
Yes?
that we could move into this role and they handle behavioral issues?
Yes.
Could that be an option? I mean, could we explore that?
I don't think it's the best,
Can you share
because
more?
you're gonna have to refill that position, middle of the year,
To find a sped.
a high-end
Maybe Mrs.
sped
Raymond.
position, when we kinda already backed off, moving Mr. Whitehead up and not replacing down there, just restructuring how they handle things, changing and shifting duties around. Now you're gonna pull a person out, and
Another one.
there'll be one. How are we gonna replace mid-year?
Right.
No, I think that'd be a great idea
I mean,
Come
just because that's what
for
we
that
need.
assistant principal position.
Right.
I think it's a
That's
good
what we
idea,
need.
but I think doing that right now you're gonna hurt the special ed population across the entire school district.
You don't think Mrs. Rain might consider coming back for half a year?
I had that conversation. I think that she has a position where she is supervising student teachers out in the field, which,
Has another job.
and
What's the- what-
she's no longer as.
Is
local as
it
she
possible to
used
keep Ed like a half a day to the end of the year?
South County.
And bring somebody in just to replace him for that? I mean, or like 2 hours in the morning and then go over to the high school, or?
The thing that you have to have with that population, consistency.
Uh,
With what I consider
Well, she
the
was
babies
saying
of
January
this-
3rd, I mean, we kind of have to do something.
Right.
So I
We
mean,
need somebody
either,
in that spot.
or you can't leave, so if we're not
Or you
gonna.
can leave. There you go.
I said you can't leave, I mean, we gotta figure a way to keep it there.
So the common theme I'm hearing is the board would like to have an administrative intern and look at it again, how that person's performing, open the position for assistant principal, let the intern apply if they wish, and then determine in the spring if you want to keep the intern position in March or April, or if you do not and you want to do something different, that intern would go back to the classroom.
Well, and we also need to find out how we're gonna finance this, where it's
Well,
coming from.
Right. Exactly.
How we're gonna pay for that position. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, I don't wanna be tied in always because of money, but you have to think of that. And I don't know, every building has something they want, another
Yes,
position
they
they
do.
want.
Yes, they do.
I mean,
One of the things is that flexibility as we evaluate some of the different things that we have going on in our district and our changing student population, and to determine the long-term viability solution and the challenge of meeting the immediate need is where that intern does help us. I think it's also, the piece of that is the teacher component, is trying to find a retired or 550 teacher, because if we post that teaching position and hire a full-time teacher, we have many paras in the district that are going to want that.
that's true.
And that, at the end of the year, and then that domino effect of, let's just say it didn't work. That teacher's going back, we're going to that paraprofessional, hey, now you don't have a job. And that's not doing right by our current people that are there, and/or depending on the grade level, when you talk about transfers for our current staff. If we put a brand new teacher in a desired grade level, there's gonna be some teachers like, well, I've been here 10 years and been waiting for that opening.
So are you saying it would be better to go outside than for this intern?
No, I'm saying for filling the teaching position, we need to look for the best candidate, but that's probably a retired person or a
Yes.
long-term sub.
I agree. And then you don't have holes that have been filled.
Right.
And
You minimize the domino effect.
correct.
And the potential for,
I'm
that's
gonna
a,
resign and then I'll fill it.
and our staff, I think, of the big piece is a lot of their stress is what's the plan?
That's
And
right.
not the uncertainty.
Right.
And they're looking to us for, I just want to know this, because I'm coming with all these scenarios in my head,
Right.
is lay it out there so I can start, then I know what I got out in front of me. and
It's
I can-
coming. What? You're smiling.
I was gonna throw a really out of the box at you.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
Well, I shared this with Calissa because it hit me as we were talking yesterday, and this is really outside. And at the beginning, you said, I have special ed and behavior management, and it's like, you could go down there and we could hire a substitute superintendent, retired superintendent for the remainder of the school year. I'm just saying.
Well, Doc, we could do, Dr. Isaacson could do,
Doc-
you're a
Doc-
assistant principal with
I made the same
sped.
face.
I was just,
I'll tell you this right now.
you said
I
if you
will
needed
do
to.
whatever this district asks me to do. But I couldn't even go down there and assist with evaluations. I mean,
Yeah, but you sure could help carry those kids.
yeah, I could carry the kids.
And I,
I can
We
see you
got a-
picking them up by the
a
neck.
retired superintendent, right?
No.
Really local.
Well,
Just retired last year. Aren't they calling you stranger danger?
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Doctor.
thanks,
Oh,
Ed.
thanks, Mr. Marino, for that.
What?
stranger danger.
Miss Murray's room. I don't remember that.
How convenient.
All right, we gotta make way here.
See,
Okay.
Couldn't you
My
work with
concern with
Trish
the
as a
temporary
substitute?
is
Temporary what?
The temporary
I just,
intern.
Gotta
Are we
think
gonna
outside
get
the
any
box
applications?
sometimes.
And if we do get any applications,
I
are
think
they?
you will.
Do you?
I do. Because to them, that's getting your foot in the door to be the assistant principal. You know, and
It's experience
yeah.
that they can put on a resume moving forward too.
As long as the
How many do
intern
we
is
have,
not
just,
permanent.
do we know how many we've got with that certification?
Yeah.
In-house?
In-house.
I think there's pretty many, isn't there?
3,
Three
4,
primary.
5, 6,
There's several in
I'm thinking
every
across the
building.
district.
Yeah.
Across the district.
10 to 12. That is K to high school. If I'm guessing, that's ballpark.
The potential is anybody from within the district could apply for this position.
As long
as
Get
they're
it, and we could be
elementary
replacing-
certified.
As long as they're elementary certified. So now we just cut your pool down to about 8,
Okay.
maybe 6.
And they're all within
More than
the
6.
6th grade and under?
No.
8th grade and under?
You'll have, I think, 1, possibly 2 at the junior high.
Well, there's people at the high school who are certified K through 12.
Okay.
You know, like
Yeah.
I've got a K through 12 certification, there's plenty of, several people.
Just because they're in the junior high and high school.
So the teaching
Not
position we could be
certified.
backfilling could be anywhere within the district,
Yes.
Yes,
potentially.
that makes,
Will that be harder if it's someone in a specialized subject?
Yes. I love these one answer responses.
I know.
Yes.
but that's true.
I mean, it would be
Yes.
harder if it was someone from a specialized
If you took
subject.
somebody from, let's say, history or
That might.
mathematics or one of the
History or
upper level
something, yeah.
sciences.
But
you
that
would
might
have
have
a
Would
problem.
we be able to bring back a retired teacher for that specialized?
They have,
To sub, you mean?
Right, to sub, how does that work?
here's your problem, you're talking about EOCs, oh man, I wouldn't be as comfortable with that.
But we shouldn't use that against the candidate when they're applying
You
either.
can't,
So,
no,
I mean,
no. You don't want to be discriminatory.
Right,
You want everybody, we want
absolutely.
an equal opportunity employer, not, hey, we're equal opportunity employer except for you if you teach
Right.
upper level mathematics, so don't
Exactly.
even apply. We want
It'd still be a factor, though.
to, of course it'll be a
that
factor.
could be a problem, we could be
But
creating
as
a
we
bigger
always
problem
say,
is
we
what I'm
don't
thinking.
want to hold our people back.
Right,
Doesn't Dr. Freeman have a background with the younger kids?
Elementary.
She taught
She does.
elementary,
She
yeah.
taught 6th grade,
What did he say?
Dr. Freeman?
yes.
Dr. Freeman does have an elementary background.
Okay, so,
Do you know anything more than an hour and a half ago?
I think we're going to post it as an interim position, and that's kind of the feeling I'm getting from the board, that you would like to post as an interim position and see how it goes. Look at finances and determine if you want to continue with the interim position, if you just want to do a assistant principal
So
position.
the person will go into this knowing that for the rest of the
ma'am.
year, I'll be an intern, but
That's
after
correct.
that, I may go back to the
That is
classroom.
correct. Because typically, our interns stay interns until they become assistant principals. Now, I say that because we've had some interns start in August, September, they were interns for the year. We had one, most recently, that came in, so there was no, it wasn't intern period, if that makes sense. We weren't hiring mid-year after contracts were issued, we hired in the spring. So some people have asked, how come that person wasn't an intern? Well, that's the reason. For at least me, I don't know how Dr. Ghosting was brought in.
You know, I'm just thinking about a current situation where we thought we knew a person,
Right.
and we
Long-term
obviously
sub,
did not.
it'd be my
Mhm.
mom.
And I don't want to be put in that position.
Oh,
again.
I agree.
I bet.
I can appreciate that position.
When people change too, you know. So are we talking one intern and two, or?
No, what I'm doing now is one intern and,
So do we need a motion?
no, well, I don't think you need a motion. I think you need to kind of just give us some direction. We'll post the position, because what I don't want to happen is we make the motion, this is what we're doing, and it winds up we get 0 applicants. And then we're in a hole and we're back here again, December 23rd, doing something different. So we'll post the position as an intern. What we'll do is we will look at the rate of pay of an assistant principal, kind of break that out per day, look at January to May, look at that figure. So what we'll do is post the position with kind of a broad salary schedule, because it could be
Depending on
they get a $5,000 raise, they could get an $18,000 raise, depending upon where they are on the salary schedule currently.
But it
we'll-
won't change benefits if
It
it's
won't
in
change
house.
benefits, no ma'am.
That's if they're in a trouble.
And we'll keep
Right.
it, with regard to their current teaching contract. So basically, this will be like an additional duty with a stipend. Otherwise, we're gonna have to change it. The leave days would be in the mix, so we're going to keep it as same as we can, if that makes sense. Because, and I'll have to check with the attorney, if they're a tenured teacher and they move to an administrative contract and they go back to a teacher, tenure, that's awful, kind of a sticky wicket. So we'll see if we can just keep them on a teacher contract with an additional compensation for extra duty.
At least for
We'll
now.
keep it the same as their teaching days, so we're not having an increased cost there. We might try to do a couple of days after, just to help Dr. Costin get some paperwork done after the teachers are gone.
Does this sound okay to you?
I would love to have help, so that sounds great.
I just have a clarifying question. Is the individual that takes this position, and so they know going in, is if the board decides to hire an assistant principal and maintain the intern, so we're going to 3 individuals, they will not have to re-interview for the intern.
No.
It's either we keep them at the intern, or they're going back to the classroom, or they can apply for the assistant
Well,
principal.
we're kind of pigeonholing ourselves to keeping them at the intern if that doesn't work out. That's what we're.
There's no guarantee you're staying in an intern position.
Right.
Till
I think
so
they
they
would
They have to
re-interview
apply
for
for-
all positions.
Yeah.
Unless,
Yes.
no,
That's what-
unless they go back to the
No,
teaching
I
position.
want to I'm stopping you
And
there.
that's
Go
not
get
good,
theirs.
though.
No, the board might choose, we're going to continue with this person in the intern role.
Okay.
So they might not have to re-interview. We're not going to say everyone re-interviews.
There's no guarantees, though.
But there's no guarantee this position will exist at the end of this school year.
And if it does, there's no guarantee that.
There's
you'll
no
be in that
guarantee that
spot.
you'll be in that spot.
That's right.
Like Russian
That's
roulette.
what I
The
was-
guarantee is that they
think
would
we
go
got-
back to the class.
That they'll have a
The only
job.
guarantee they have is that they will
I don't
either
know.
be an intern,
I'm
or
not
excuse me,
sure.
they will have a job.
If they
I
currently
rolled
have
the
one.
dice.
They currently have a job, so
Well,
we still have a job.
I would.
I think you'll either get like 2 or 8.
Well, possibly.
From inside,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you'll get some.
I think it'd be good.
And then we're going with a retired or someone on the sub list
Or
to be our
right.
long-term?
Yes, ma'am.
Depending on where the intern comes from.
What kind of?
True.
Because if
Position
you,
it is.
like you said, if it's a math teacher, you can't put a sub in for a calculus class for the rest of the year. I mean,
The
Unless
person
they're-
knows math.
Well,
But
one
here's
of the-
another example. Let's say that we have an elementary teacher that gets moved, but we have a dynamic, awesome para who's a certified teacher, who's taught before. We could put that person in there, and then the sub will be, because that person already knows our process, our programs, our school day. All right, so there's a lot of dominoes that are gonna fall, and a lot of consideration to give to each position. But you're 100% correct. We can't just bring Tommy Two Toes off the street to teach math. We're gonna have to get the best person or a retired person to do that.
But if you pull a para to fill this long-term job,
Could be an instructional para, could be.
okay, but then you're gonna have to push them back into, they have to go back too.
Yes, they will. Our hope is, but we're not gonna let the education of our kids suffer. If that makes sense. If we have
I
a
understand that, but
long-term
I
sub
I
that's
feel
not
like,
working out,
There's no security for anybody who takes the positions at
Right.
this point. And that's why it's Russian roulette.
well, the only
Well, the
security is the
security they're
person
gonna
that
have.
moves is you're gonna have a job.
They're gonna have a job
Well,
regardless, but it may not
but
be the
it-
position that they move into.
That
Right.
program that Butch Smith teaches, do most of his students, are they already employed, or do any of those,
No,
People-
some,
program is it?
Yeah.
his,
like the doctoral program that he has up there
Yeah.
at MOBAB.
yeah,
I think the most recent class, 92% currently are administrators.
And they're just
I
going
didn't
on
know
with their degree.
if he was-
Some teaches online class, some work part-time.
I see what that was.
On the sub, one of the things that we, to answer your question, sorry, sorry, Steve, we've been, even on some of our FMLA long-term, is, I've been posting that to put certified teachers in there. You know, because for 12 weeks, you can't have somebody with 60 hours. That should be a goal of ours. And so, say it was a math, we'd be looking for somebody with math. I will post, hey, this is a second semester only, long-term sub-position in physics. And be looking for a physics teacher, not John Isaacson, who was a history
That
teacher.
might have to be a long-term daily rate.
Long-term daily rate. Oh, well, yeah, okay, I know that.
All right, that's,
So, anything else we need to discuss at this point?
no ma'am.
Okay, all hearts
To adjourn.
and minds clear here.
Just
All
wish we
right.
had more money. We
I
could hire.
wish I didn't have to think of that.
We could
but
get an extra intern, whatever.
Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn then. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And second was, who seconded that motion? Was that?
Did you second?
Good enough.
I didn't know, I heard a mumbling, but I wasn't sure.
Maybe we
Okay.
get enough sales tax out of the new grocery store.
Oh, if they open.
All in favor to adjourn,
Well,
raise your hand.
Russell's probably. Get
Okay,
out, Russell.
thank